In what was another heartbreaking and excruciating defeat for James Franklin and the Penn State Nittany Lions, their hopes of breaking a painful 12-game losing streak against top-5 opponents came to a crushing end. The stage was set in Miami Gardens, Florida, at Hard Rock Stadium for a college football playoff semifinal against Notre Dame, a game that would send the victor to the national championship. Penn State, riding high after dominating stretches of the game, seemed poised to end a difficult chapter in their program's history. However, in a cruel twist of fate, a costly interception by quarterback Drew Allar in the closing seconds shattered those aspirations and extended Franklin's dismal streak to 13 losses against top-5 teams. The game began with a sense of optimism for Franklin and the Nittany Lions, who raced out to an early 10-0 lead in the second quarter, putting them in a strong position. In the fourth quarter, Penn State was still in control, leading 24-17 with just minutes remaining. However, as the clock wound down, the Irish mounted a comeback, tying the game with just 33 seconds left. Penn State had one final chance to take the lead, starting with possession at their own 28-yard line. It was then that Allar, under pressure and with his options limited, made a critical mistake. On a third-and-long play, he attempted to throw a pass to receiver Omari Evans, but the ball sailed high and wide. Instead of finding Evans' feet as intended, it floated right into the arms of Notre Dame cornerback Christian Gray for a game-altering interception. The interception was a back-breaking moment for Penn State, one that would go down as one of the most consequential turnovers in college football playoff history. Just moments after the interception, Notre Dame kicker Mitch Jeter calmly lined up and drilled a 41-yard field goal to seal a 27-24 victory, sending the Fighting Irish to the national title game. The moment left Franklin and his players devastated. As the final whistle blew, tears flowed from Allar, who was visibly distraught over the costly mistake. "Should have thrown it away," he said, trying to process the magnitude of his error. The interception and ensuing loss were emblematic of larger issues that have plagued Penn State's offense under Franklin's leadership, particularly in big games. Throughout the contest, Allar struggled to connect with his wide receivers. Despite 23 pass attempts, Penn State failed to complete a single pass to a wide out, a glaring issue that was also evident in their earlier loss to Ohio State in November. The lack of separation from the receivers, combined with Notre Dame's suffocating press coverage, rendered the passing game ineffective. While Allar found some success with his tight ends and running backs, the absence of game-changing wide receivers on the outside became increasingly apparent. Franklin himself acknowledged the struggles, pointing out that Notre Dame's tight man coverage was a significant factor. He tried to downplay the lack of wide receiver production, saying, "We tried a couple early on and weren't able to convert them, tightly contested coverage, but it was clear that this was one of the key storylines of the game." Despite Allar's 12 completed passes, the Nittany Lions' passing offense failed to make any meaningful impact in a game that could have propelled them to a national title appearance. The blame for this lack of playmaking ability doesn't solely rest on the shoulders of Allar, who is still in the early stages of his development as a college quarterback. It also highlights a deeper issue within Penn State's recruiting and player development strategies. Penn State's wide receiver group has consistently failed to produce at an elite level during Franklin's tenure, and this lack of top-tier playmakers has become a recurring theme in their struggles against the top teams in college football. Penn State is ever to truly break through and contend for a national title, a solution will need to be found for their wide receiver core. This could mean a greater reliance on the transfer portal and nil opportunities to acquire top-level talent. During a recent interview, Penn State's athletic director, Pat Kraft, acknowledged that the program would need to adapt to the changing landscape of college football. "In this murky nil era, Ohio State and others have a leg up," Kraft said. However, he expressed optimism that with the impending changes to direct player compensation, Penn State would be able to compete head-to-head with the nation's top programs. "I think it's our time," he said, hinting at a future where Penn State is no longer left behind in the recruiting arms race. Despite these external factors, the internal culture within the program remains a strong point of pride for Franklin. Known for his passion and investment in his players' development both on and off the field, Franklin remains a beloved figure within the program. After the loss to Notre Dame, He was seen comforting his players, offering hugs and words of encouragement to Allar and running back Nick Singleton. "Proud of you guys," Franklin told them. "Love you." In an emotional post-game address, Franklin reflected on his tenure and the evolution of college football. He spoke at length about the changing nature of the sport, particularly the professionalization of college athletics through NIL and the transfer portal. While acknowledging these changes, Franklin expressed a desire to maintain the values of a traditional program, one that prioritizes relationships and development over transactional dealings. "It's about the guys. I understand the transfer portal and NIL are a part of college football and will embrace those things, but I want this to be more than transactional. I want it to be transformational," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. Yet, for all of Franklin's passion and commitment, the fact remains that Penn State has fallen short year after year against the elite teams of college football. His inability to win in these critical moments, particularly against the likes of Ohio State, Michigan, and Notre Dame, has become an albatross around the program's neck. As Franklin's streak of losses to top 5 teams extends, the questions about his future and the program's trajectory will continue to mount. Despite the adversity, there is a sense that Penn State is close, oh so close, to breaking through. They were moments away from a national title appearance, a mere handful of plays separating them from the ultimate prize. However, until they can overcome their limitations and make the necessary adjustments, particularly in the passing game and at wide receiver, the criticisms of Franklin and the program will persist. As Penn State enters the offseason, Franklin will face continued pressure to prove that he can elevate the Nittany Lions to the level of college football's elite. The road ahead will be difficult, but it is clear that with the right adjustments, particularly in terms of acquiring talent and adapting to the modern landscape of college football, Penn State could eventually break through and compete for championships on a regular basis. Until then, the critics will continue to point to the same question: will James Franklin and Penn State ever get over the hump?